But welcome, Paul and Negaya. Really great to have you here.
Great to be
Thank you.
here, Christy.
Great to be here. Thank you.
So what would you tell, and I don't mind who kicks us off, what would you tell one of these applicants that's considering applying to the program? What do they need to hear right now, do you think?
Go, Paul.
Yeah, pretty easy. Go for it. So I know when I was sitting on the other end, I said, oh, this program looks amazing, but I was thinking, I'm probably too busy, probably not going to have the time. I've got too much going on. And I kind of did half the application and then I stopped. And then I got an email from Lisa saying you need to complete your application, which I did. And thankfully, I got into a program which for me was truly changing in terms of my career, but also in my personal life as well.
Thanks, Paul. Negaya?
Yeah, I'd say much the same. I just think go for it. I'd apply again in a heartbeat. It is such a wonderful program. I mean, as Christy has talked about, it is so comprehensive in, working on the individual, the organization, and the system. But it's also, I think, a very generous program. So you're really nurtured and sustained through the program at the same time as being pushed to be your very best. So yeah, I cannot recommend it highly enough.
Thanks. I mean, neither of you said this, and I'm not suggesting either of you felt like this, but the other one we've heard from a number of alums and conversations I've had during particularly that first retreat, it's like, oh my God, I wasn't going to press submit on the application because I didn't think I'd get in. And
Mm.
so I think that thing about you can't know, back yourself and go for it is also important messaging. Let's get to some more specifics around the program. I mean, Nagaya, you just referred to self-org system.
Mm.
Do you want to kick us off with, how has the program affected you? Can you describe what kind of, impacts it had on you? And you can pick up any of the componentry.
Yeah, I mean, I think I work in international aid and development, and our operating environment, as I think everyone knows, is becoming more complex and more challenging. We're seeing the impacts of climate change. We're seeing, of course, democratic decline. We're seeing a shake-up of the whole international rules-based order. And what that means essentially is the whole, SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, are at risk. We're going backwards by decades. So I think this kind of global complex operating environment, but combined with things that are more kind of domestically focused around, an increasingly competitive funding environment, particularly in the international development space, there's not a huge amount of philanthropists that support our work. I think it just meant I reflected on the fact that we really need to sharpen our tools. How do we make sure that at an individual level, at an organizational level, and at a systems level, that we are fit for purpose and we're
Mm.
really well equipped to meet the challenges of this moment. I think it's more important than ever before because, of course, our mission is central. The impact we're trying to achieve in the world is so important, but it's becoming an increasingly complex, challenging operating environment. The other point I would just make, Christy, it was interesting you used the word confidence and the fact that it gives participants confidence. The word that I keep coming back to is galvanizing. And again, for me personally, I found the whole program, because it was so comprehensive and so supportive, but it also pushed us. I've come out feeling really galvanized. And again, when we look around the world and look at the threats and the challenges that we're facing, I feel like we need leaders that are galvanized, that are strong, that are highly capable. We know, of course, that, some people talk about leadership being, difficult, lonely. I guess I've come out of this program with now 23 amazing CEO colleagues. So we've got this fabulous network. We've got a learning circle. We've also got, some of the best leadership literature available from around the world. I mean, Christy and Robbie look right around the world to get the very best literature and leadership frameworks. So it just means, again, that you kind of can go into any situation feeling really able and, as I say, galvanized. The other final point I would make, and then love to hear from Paul, but just more personally, I think what the program does encourage participants to do is really bring their whole self to the program. So you're not just talking about leadership in the abstract, you're actually telling your own life story as part of it as well. And what that means is it can be a bit of a rumble. You're looking at what have been some of the hurdles that have stopped me in the past, or what is it that I'm struggling with to be the very best I can be. So it can be a process that's very holistic and it goes deep. But as a result, you come out so much more stronger and richer from the experience. So again, it's for me personally, it's been a fabulous opportunity. But over to you, Paul.
Oh, well, I think you summed it up brilliantly. I think for myself, as you touched on, Negaya, just the experience from an individual perspective, looking at the organization that I work for, and the system that I work in as well. It was really challenging, for myself to let go of a few things. I think it's kind of been touched on that, particularly in a not-for-profit sector, we often don't have a lot of funds. We don't have a lot of support. We're spinning many plates at the same time. A lot of the system is set up for us to actually compete against other organizations for funding, because of limited resources rather than actually collaborating. So to actually explore that and dive into that was really, really interesting. From an organizational level, again, one of the hesitations was what happens when I'm gone. But that's a conversation I think a lot of us as CEOs and leaders go through, is that we carry so much, we often struggle to delegate. And the idea of me stepping out of the business for 12 plus weeks was pretty daunting for myself, but certainly for my board. And then looking at who's actually going to step up. But what it actually identified is the risk of not actually trialing that. And this was an opportunity to actually see what it looks like when I'm not there. And it was great for the whole business to actually step up, and when I came back, found that not only stepped up but continued to step up. And that was brilliant for something I really didn't expect to happen. But yeah, again, the probably one of the strongest components is the networks, that you do build. I've done leadership programs before, but it's rare you're sitting in a room with other CEOs from the not-for-profit sector who are going through the same thing that you're going through. So yeah, I couldn't recommend the program enough.
Thanks, Paul and Negaya, and I promise we didn't bribe them with any of these responses in terms of the impact of the program. And Paul, thanks for bringing up the sabbatical, because I do know that is one of the things that people worry about. And so I want to open this up so everybody can ask questions. And if you've got anything more specific about the sabbatical, please start putting it into the chat. It'd be great to field some questions from those of you who are interested in SILA, applying for SILA, that Paul and Negaya can answer for you. I wonder whether, in terms of that, sorry, I'm just looking at the chat, and maybe I wonder, Negaya, whether you want to say something about the sabbatical as well, and that fear, or how you managed it, in terms of, how you managed it with the board, or what you're worried about, or what helped you during that process.
I got to say, Christy, unlike a lot of other participants, I was the opposite. I couldn't wait for sabbatical, and I was not fearful. And I said, "See you later. Good luck." So, I had a very wonderful step up leader, and I almost wish she was here to tell her story as well, because it's been absolutely transformational for her. I've just seen her flourish. She has been exceptional. So the organisation was left in very safe hands. The board was supportive. It was a bit of a journey with the board, I think, to kind of help them understand just what an incredible opportunity this is. But once they had that opportunity, they were on board 100%. But just to say, I mean, I think, sabbatical, people use it for different reasons. And again, as Christy was saying, so much of this program has been shaped around evidence. And part of the evidence was that CEOs are burnt out and they need a break. And if we're going to sustain CEOs, we need to give them a chance to step back and rest. So for well-being purposes, the sabbatical was wonderful. But what I would also say is that, we rarely get an opportunity to think strategically and in a high-level way. And what the program talks about, being on the balcony, we're so consumed by the everyday, by meetings, by endless emails. And I just found the SILA sabbatical process such an extraordinary opportunity to stand right back and actually meaningfully think about impact. So in my space, that's about global poverty. So how are we actually addressing global poverty? And is our model the best one to be addressing global poverty? And I started thinking and reading and connecting with people around the world and having conversations that I would never have been able to have if I was just doing the day-to-day of the job. So on so many levels, I found the sabbatical wonderful. And I think my step-up leader would say the same thing. It's been absolutely transformational for her. Thanks, Christy.
Nice. Thanks, Negaya. Paul, did you want to add anything to that? Or do you want me to go to a different question? How did you use your sabbatical as the other one that's come up? So do you want to just talk about that, Paul?
Yeah. So going right back to the start, the red flag for the board was, who's paying for all of this when you're gone? So when I explain that there is funding that goes towards me being away, but also to support the step up leader, who takes on additional roles, that was a big, I guess, tick for the board. I chose to go overseas, because for me personally, I knew that if I stayed, I'm in Perth, if I stayed in Perth, that I would be tempted to look at emails, phone calls, all the rest, and slowly slip back into work. So I said, you know what, I'm going overseas. I won't be back for 10 to 12 weeks. I thought it would take me a while to switch off. I think day two, I completely switched off. And, it wasn't for another 6 or 7 weeks before I even thought about work, which I guess sort of showed how much I needed that time off. Because other holidays are generally 2 weeks thereabouts. You find yourself doing emails, all that. So this was, for me, it was a great experience.
Nice, thanks, Paul. And different people do different things with their sabbatical. We do have, as Paul and Negaya referred to, there are various support mechanisms around the sabbatical. So we have toolkits, we have the coaching support, we have conversations about what might you do. The sabbatical is like it's a tailored sabbatical, but it's tailored by you and your coach and what you might need. So part of this is so different people will do different things. It is 3 months. We do have a period of time where we recommend people take it. And so we have a retreat 1, a retreat 2. The idea is ideally you can do your sabbatical in the block before retreat 3 and the program finishes. As Paul alluded to, part of the funding is, and Jenny also spoke about this, each organisation gets an unrestricted, it's roughly around $32,000 unrestricted funding, and you can do with that what you need to as an organisation. Some people will, like Paul said, they'll use it to top the salary up of the step-up leader while they're acting CEO. Some people will use some of that for other leadership components that they want to bring into their org. It may even be, as a CEO, you have to also run your marketing and comms because you're so lean that you need to spend X dollars on bringing in a marketing and comms while your step-up leader holds other things. So people, it varies, and we will wrap around to support what that might look like. There's also been a question about the step-up leaders and can you have two? We also work alongside the step-up leader sort of process, but ideally you will have someone in mind as you are applying. Paul or Negaya, do one of you want to just talk about your step-up leader process and how you identified it? And maybe, I mean, you both don't run enormous organizations, as in you don't have hundreds of people like some other CEOs do. And so how did you manage this in a relatively lean environment?
Do you want me to jump in, Paul? And then
Yeah, you go.
Yeah.
You go.
I encouraged all 3 of my leadership team members to apply. I really wanted an open, transparent, fair process. Interestingly, only one did, and she was certainly someone who I thought was highly capable. So it worked really well. I think, had all 3 applied, it would have been tricky, actually. It wouldn't have been as straightforward. But as I say, I had one apply and she was the right candidate. So what about you, Paul?
I already had someone who was pretty much 2IC, but what was interesting, there was another staff member who showed a lot of potential. So I did think about, well, do I sort of split it, give them the opportunity? But in the end, I decided give it to one person for the full experience. What was great with the program is the fact that they got a mentor as well, and they went through a lot of the process, not just when I was away, but in particularly in the lead up to me leaving, so that they felt confident. The chair of my board also attended some of those sessions as well. So it was a great almost succession planning leading towards her sabbatical.
Thanks, Paul and Negaya. There's questions about what size of the organisation is this most useful for. So there are rules and guidelines, and I won't go through those because I don't want to take up time. That you can read about it on the internet, and also we can do specific questions because there is an in-kind kind of option around total cap. But I wonder whether from either of your experiences or talking to the other alums, your cohort had such different groups of people. We've got people in the chat here who are also running small organisations that are in regional or rural areas. Do you want to just talk about, do you have colleagues, peers that were part of the cohort? Can one of you just talk about the range of different kinds of orgs that your peers were running?
You want to jump in, Paul?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So our organization, we have around, when I did the course, probably about 25 staff, and we were about 5 years old. So still quite new, still filtering our way through the landscape and the system. And we operate metro and regional and remote. So it was very helpful. But yeah, within our cohort, we had some leaders who had teams of 100 plus, working across 2 states. We had others who had a small team of 3 or 4 people. And so again, the challenge for them was, well, how do I actually step away from the business when we're so lean? And
Mm.
just that diversity was really good. So again, in terms of what the program can offer, understanding that at any stage of the business, it actually had a really good impact.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Paul. I need to wrap in a minute. What is one parting thought that each of you have for the folks online? Negaya?
Oh, I just say go for it. It is, life-changing. And as I say, we need strong leaders at the moment because the challenges are enormous. So if you're interested, I can't recommend it highly enough. Paul?
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it. The learning you get for yourself, but also across organizations, the networks you build. I couldn't recommend it highly enough.
Mm. Thanks, guys. So we'll make sure that any question that's posted in the chat we pick up and get back to you individually, or we add to our FAQs online. So we will follow up. Thank you, Paul and Negaya, for being fabulous. People to work alongside during the SILA program, and for the work that you do, contributing to social change in the sectors that you're in. We will make sure this is available online. There are plenty of other resources you can look at. There are some more videos of alum. Just one other question that probably isn't in the FAQs on the sabbatical. There is no assignment, but we do a piece of work. So you capture yourself before you leave for sabbatical, and then just do some brief reflections post. But it isn't about having a particular test. It's not about having a particular study leave. It's not about anything that has to be particularly focused. Look, thank you everyone for being here. I want us to keep to our promised time. I appreciate the funders. Let me acknowledge Armine and the CSI team that sit behind all of the other work that happens to make this a fabulous experience. And I really appreciate all of your interest here. Jenny, thank you for joining me as representing the funders. And Paul and Negaya, thank you again. It's a joy to see you both again and have your input. Thanks everyone for being here. I look forward to seeing your applications.
Thanks so much, Christy. Thanks, everyone.